If you look at your screen, it says the prophetic is agentive. Agentive. Now, I studied these words and we're going to go through them in a minute. But the point that I want you to get is that it's a vehicle. It's an intermediary. The prophetic is God's agency. Divine communications media agency. Divine communications media agency. Divine communications media agency. Why did I say that many times? Because I need you to start thinking differently about it. Because we've been stripping it of its power. Divine communications media agency. It is God's in totality of God's voice being released to his creation. It's the consummate of it. So that little capsule that you get, that's just a capsule. And it's amazing how people will take that little capsule and act as if that capsule released everything that made that pill, every reason that pill was made or that capsule was made, all of the people who designed it and passed it on and compounded it, and all of the reasons that it's put into a body and all of the issues that it is supposed to address, effects that it's going to have, even counter effects or contraindications. That's prophecy. So why we're here now, let me tell you why I'm saying all of this, because this is important. I've been talking over the last several weeks, certainly since the election and especially since the inauguration, about divination. And I'm going to keep talking about it because that's the one thing you haven't been trained as a people of God to understand. You've been trained to think that if anybody says it's God, it's God. And you don't know that it isn't God until your life is in the toilet. Till you are misled, till you've acted on that word that was misjudged, or you went out to obey it and found out, wait a minute, but you don't know about divination. And I remember in the 80s, some of those wonderful people that were helping us find our way and navigate through this spiritual realm. I remember in the 80s, them talking about a Python spirit. Divination is a Pythonic spirit. That means the person is somehow or another influenced at the least and embodied by a Pythonic spirit, or the spirit of a python as it was used in ancient times to signify the gods speaking. So divination is by a Pythonic spirit. That's where we are. And we've talked about it in the past, and we're probably going to revisit some of those definitions again. But I want to tell you about divination as an adversary to the prophetic. Divination is a rival to true prophecy, because divination is spontaneous, it's contemporary, it's cultural, it's in time, and prophecy is not. Divination will tell you based on obvious events, world events. Look up the Oracle of Delphi. Don't take my word for it. Look up the Oracle of Delphi yourself. The oracle was a being, a woman, and everybody, world leaders and all of that, went to this woman to find out the potential of their adventures or their campaigns, whether it was war or whether it was diplomacy, whether it was a building project, it didn't matter. And they went to the Oracle of Delphi. That's what Paul was dealing with when he started talking about women keep silence in the church. He wasn't saying God can't use women. He was getting women who were trained by that. Women who served that. And all of those outlying areas that were connected to this oracle, the Oracle of Delphi, where Delphi means dolphin. You should know that. So divination has always been a problem for God. And it goes all the way back, as I've told you before, and I'll say it again, it goes all the way back to Eve. When the serpent said to Eve, you will not surely die. For God knows that the moment you eat, your eyes will be open and you will be as God. That was a prophecy. But it was a false prophecy. It came from a spiritual being, so it was a divine word, because he's a divine being, celestial or not. So it came from a divine word, and it went and it set in motion a chain of events that landed us to where we are today, and that caused divination to be exalted above prophecy. Because the first prophecy God gave was not even to Eve, he gave it to Adam. God prophesied himself to Adam what would happen. He said, now listen, Adam, I'm going to put you in this garden. You can eat any tree you want. From that tree in the garden, the midst of the garden, of the tree of life, have at it. Just keep eating. But the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is in the garden with it, next to it, you shall not eat from that tree, because in the day that you eat thereof, you will surely die. Now here is what's interesting, because initially when I started revisiting that, I'm thinking Adam doesn't know what death is. But then Adam is born and made in the image and likeness of his maker, so he pretty much knows what God knows. He may not know it experientially, but he spent a whole day in God before God put him in a body. So God says prophetically, creation is tuned to the words that I speak. So everything that's in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is about killing Adam and keeping him dead. So God prophesies this. And so however long that it took for him to name all of the animals as God made them, because it said God made them and brought them to him. That had to be a very long period of time. Now, I don't know that it was, decades, but it had to be some time for God to form bodies. So he formed Adam's body, and then he formed bodies from all of those creatures that were in the garden with Adam. All of them, every creature. So, we call it a garden. We think it's a little patch outside our house. No, his garden was probably half the planet. So however long that took, Adam knew that tree was there, and he knew that serpent. And we can talk all day long about the woman messed up and the man was a victim. I keep saying it because wrong teaching causes wrong breeding. And so I keep saying it, Adam was with her. And so the first divination in creation was the serpent telling Eve, he was with her, you will not die. He's divining a lie based on the moment. Because the prophecy was already in creation, and that word was already part of Adam's genetic makeup, his genome, and his physiological functions and actions. He said, in the day that you eat thereof, you will surely die. The serpent knows that death, he's a spirit, he doesn't have a body, and he's dead. So he knew God didn't mean Adam's body. He didn't mean his physical body. He knew that, but he could take advantage of Adam's naivety on the subject of death. I don't know about you, but I got to hit something. There you go. I had to hit something, guys. I'm about ready to pull out a cloth. Sackcloth. Because you know why? The serpent said he won't die, and the serpent is dead. That's why necromancy figures so highly in divination. Because he's a dead spirit, and he's the carrier of death. His genome, he's genomically dead. His makeup is dead. He is how people die. I'm going to sip a little, because y'all probably need a break. Come on, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. See, because you need that, don't you? I want you to get this, because this is very important. So he needed a body, and God put Satan in that serpent's body, but he was a dead creature when he put him in there. So he knew full well what God meant when Eve quoted, probably unnecessarily, but when Eve quoted, and wrongly, that the Lord said, no, we cannot eat from the tree in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that we cannot eat it or touch it lest we die. So you could tell he'd been working on her already, because she lied. He didn't say not touch it. Although it probably, in the way they were doing things, touching it and eating it is, it's like the kid that's got to touch the hot oven. After a while, the kids like, until they realize, ooh, this is dangerous. But that was divination, people. Because if you don't recognize the origin of a thing, then you can never understand its evolution. That's why evolution can't work. So he tells her, you will not surely die. You will certainly not die. And he just let her know. And he, all his powers of pretending to be an angel of light, he begins to pull on them at that moment for her to blind her, for her to see the tree as she has never seen it before. This election, these people saw the characters in this election as they had never seen it before. But the beguiling spirit, the serpent, has blinded their eyes. He painted another picture in her brain. Now, she'd been looking at that thing for a little while. But all of a sudden, she looks at it and she's got a craving for this thing. Her appetite is aroused. You got this delightful little tree of life over here, but probably not little. But all of a sudden, you have an appetite because this thing is divining against the prophecy. I don't know about you, but I think that's good stuff. So when he says to her, once he sent that divination out, the power of his words changed her view of truth, changed her optics on that tree. Oh, I thought it was a bad tree. Oh, it's not a bad tree. Oh, it's actually pretty. It's kind of pretty. Look at that fruit. Rich, succulent looking. And I can become like God. Oh, yeah, I'm eating this. Oh, because the implication is God is jealous. God is envious. God is threatened by Adam and Eve, which is why he doesn't want them to eat from that tree. He's a world leader. Remember, he had his own world, a couple of them. So when you think about it, and I want you to play this more than once, several times, so that you can hear all of the nuances that you're not picking up right now on this first listen. But he talked her into stepping away from the prophecy and disbelieving the word of the Lord. So what happens? They eat and they stay in their bodies. And today, coming down the eras and ages and millennia, you hear a lot of the, unbelievers. Yeah, but he still lived all that time. But ask a person who's dying from a disease and has not left their body yet what that looks like, what that feels like. Ask those people who are struggling, trying to stay on this planet. They're still in their body, but they're dead. They're dying every second of every day. That is not to sound indifferent, certainly not to sound callous, but reality is reality. And, people like to come back on you, but yet you go and pay up your insurance and you go make a will. So how offensive is it? But if you want an example, you get people are walking around in these beautiful bodies, healthy, looking, gorgeous, living life, and it's a death sentence on their soul. And the body is obeying the death that was in that soul. And every day it's getting itself ready to go back to the dust. And sometimes people can walk around struggling like that for 5 years, 20 years, 30 years. How about even now, there's not a body on the planet. And I mean, our scientists and doctors tell us there's not one body on the planet that is not laden with death-defying codes, death-defying cells. Not one. So I think God's word prevailed. Adam died. And he said, and then he said, first you're going to die, and then you're going to return to the dust. For out of it you were taken, and out of it you'll return. First you're going to die, and the reason you have to go back to the dust is because you died. Divination. And he knew he was different. From the moment he ate, he knew that he was tricked. He was deceived by the serpent. Because the serpent, if one thing the serpent did not know or knew well, is death. Because it had happened to him. And he knew that he was the first being, the first creature in all of God's creation to know what death is, to be a carrier of death. To be a carrier of death and disease and sickness and failure and all of those dismal things and those abysmal things that we are bound to as humans born from the dust of the ground that God cursed. Because see, if Adam hadn't eaten, he'd never be rejoined with the earth. But God had to turn the earth against him to assure that everything that he takes in from the planet receives his death sentence. But divination, where to begin? Right there. After that, Adam goes on, and we know the story of his first two sons. Cain becomes the founder of the offspring of the wicked one. And divination, for a long season, takes precedence over prophecy. But prophecy is still waiting, because what did God say? What did he tell Eve? The woman's going to bear seed. She's going to bring forth the seed. So that one prophecy is all we have, because from that moment on, divination is prevailing for the most part. Now, we can't overlook Abel being God's prophet, so God is speaking. But where are Abel's words? Since if you all want to talk about a prophet is only a prophet or only a true prophet, if there's some script, some text, where are Abel's words? I'm trying to figure out. We got Zacharias, but we don't have Abel. Abel's the first prophet, and God calls Zechariah the last one because John the Baptist is a bridge prophet and a reactivation of Elijah's mantle. So where's Elijah's prophecies? Where are Elisha's prophecies? How about Shemaiah? Where's his? Now we know he wrote a book. Where is it? And on and on. Gad, Edo, Nathan. Where are their prophecies? But yet they discharge the entire institution of God's divine communications media agency. But divination is all about obvious, all about time. And so I want to read to you from my dictionary, because you remember, you got it on the screen, from my dictionary, the Prophet's Dictionary. We're going to dig a little bit into divination, because I've tried to tell this three times, and I'm sure God must have wanted it as a broadcast, because the thing just kept getting lost. So, divination, we're going to have a blast on this. And the reason I'm doing this is because of our election and our inauguration, and how this man is showing that he's the product of divination, but he's also the judgment hand of God on our land. I said to people, because I still teach, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing this because, well, I belong to God. And I'm like Paul. Paul told them that ship was going to go under. They didn't believe him. He said, but I believe God. And there will be a performance of what he told me. Mary, I believe God, and there will be a performance of the things told me by the Lord. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what your divining devil can tell you, because we got the divining damsel, Acts 16:16. But I'm going to tell you this. If you were not a diviner, why couldn't you say that this man was going to be for the judgment of God on our land? If you were not a diviner, why couldn't you say this man is going to do horrible things? He's going to revoke everything of life and liberty. He is standing for the deconstruction of our land. He is standing. Why didn't you know that? Why didn't you include that? Because every negative prophecy, God explained it and explained why. Because you. Because, why didn't you know that? If you're so right. Because you are an oracle, like the Oracle of Delphi. Diviners are very much like oracles. They give you the short story cliff notes. Now I'm just going to give you the bottom line, and not what it means, and not what it's going to do. Because I'm going to tell you something. When I gave my word, I told you what the man was going to do. As a matter of fact, nobody had to be a prophet. The man told you what he was going to do. He said it. Oh, no, I'm overturning everything Trump did. I am going to open up the borders. I'm going to unleash crazy cartel and immigrants. I'm going to do a whole lot of hostile things to you. I'm going to allow your children to go to bathroom with perverts. And yeah, he said he was going to do it. I didn't need to prophesy that. That was obvious. That was media. That was news. But see, I carry the institution. And that's very different than someone else who are doing the technical stuff. And that's nothing wrong. If God gives you a word, say it. Don't stop saying it if that's what you feel God did. But don't act like your little sentence, your little cliff note is the full message and the full container of what God is doing. The full venture, because prophets tell you about God's venture and his adventures. That's what we do. And the prophetic, the prophesier, is giving you advanced information and foreknowledge in the moment, the end. They don't have the wisdom. Wisdom doesn't come like that. Prophesiers can't give you wisdom. And the technician doesn't care about it. Because that's not what they do. The prophet will come with wisdom. The wisdom of God from the mind of God. And I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm going to keep teaching it, because I wrote this book. I got 600. Listen, I'll be around a long time. I got, what do I have here? Over 1,600 terms. I'm down to reef. Let me just show you so we understand. I have 1,641 terms in this book. 1,641. Some very involved, like divination, I'm about to cover in this book. And then, of course, I've got the Prophet's Handbook. I've got some claims. I think you've been offered to purchase some of the teachings I've did from chapter 12 of the handbook. But 1,641 ways to understand the prophetic. And divination, I do understand. So, moving on. Well, isn't it important? Don't we need to know that? So, I'm sorry, I want you to go to page 166. If you have your dictionary, I'll be teaching from the dictionary a great deal in this year. And the entry number is 388. Entry 388. Divination. What would be known today as the New Age psychic movement. Divination is an institution of retrieving and exchanging spiritual information that reports on people's futures, mostly their fortunes and tragedies, from different objects. Now, your psychic might stand there and say, well, you know, they may not have an object, because they might stand there and say that, you know, they have a spirit guide. You know, they have a spirit guide. They don't have access to the archives of the Almighty. They have a spirit guide. Now, who is the spirit guide? The offspring of that serpent that told Eve she wouldn't die. The next, to continue. Now, the hot button today for the people who are illegally retrieving messages, hacking. So divination tries to hack, but it can't hack what doesn't exist. Prophecy speaks about what will become and what will exist. Types of divination are tarot card readings, divining rod, water flows, and puddles, tea leaf readings, lot casting or sorting, augury, astrology, liver and entrail reading, hepatoscopy, and hierospixy, or I'm going to say hierospixy or spicky, effective only when linked to live sacrifice, and palm reading. Included in these are alchemy, metoscopy, forehead divination. Can you imagine somebody divining about your forehead? A devil is telling a person about your forehead. redefining who you are by beforehand. Now, that's a whole other thing. And if I was in another class, I'd go through and break that down for you. But we're going to go on. Oracles. We talked about that. Numerology, orneromancy, phrenology, runes, talisman, chiromancy, geomancy, rhabdomancy, and all of the mancies go on, including romancy. Generally, the suffix mancy on the end of a word indicates that it is a form of divination. Likewise, mantic as a suffix, it too stems from the root of divination. That means prayer, spiritual manipulation, and probably sacrifices and oblations, drink offerings, originally played a great role in the success of the activity or event associated with the word divination, and often sex. Deuteronomy says sex is included. On orgies, the orgies that you all like to have, and the orgies that the celebrities have to do. Yeah, for the spirit of that field to bless them, that's divination.
The hardest thing about being a prophet in this era is finding your real place, your true place in God, and then beyond that, your true place in God's kingdom. We've experienced over these last years difficulty as those that are emerging in the prophetic in this era, finding our place and where we actually fit. Where does our ministry fit in the kingdom? That's been difficult for many of us as prophets as we've been trying to seize the calling and be obedient and answer what God has purposed for us to do with our lives and in our ministries. We've tried to do that for many years, and it's been a challenge for many of us, finding out who we are, that we are. We get our moment in the prayer closet and we feel like we've heard something from God that's telling us and pushing us and compelling us to do this job, but we're not sure. Then when we get out there to tell our friends and our family, they're not sure what we are and what we're here to do. But what if we can have a tool and a resource to help us kind of clear up those issues and really make it plain what God is trying to accomplish with us? Well, Dr. Paula Price has dedicated the last 20 years of her life of not only finding the accurate place for prophets to be and how they need to serve God's kingdom, but how we can identify them and identify them accurately, not just from chills and thrills and moments of high service. Woo, I see the anointing on you. We've all had those times, haven't we? But wouldn't it be great if it could be backed up by something concrete that you can see in black and white that tells you who you are? Well, that's exactly what Dr. Price has done with the standardized ministry assessments. She's created a suite of assessments that can help each fivefolder actually find out where they fit and belong in God's kingdom. Not only identifying if you are or are not a prophet, teacher, pastor, or evangelist, but then going beyond that and showing how you manifest and express yourself in that position, what you're likely to do, how you're likely to perform, and how you're likely to impact the lives of others, and the best environment for you to do it. Nothing's worse than knowing who you are and knowing your purpose, but not knowing the sphere that you're called to do it in and how you could do it best in that sphere. That's what the assessments bring to you. A lot of great information that will help you not only know by the Spirit that God called you to be something, but see yourself on paper in action, your thoughts, how you think, what you recognize, what you identify with, how you would respond to different scenarios and situations. All of that is housed inside of the standardized ministry assessments. It's not just a spiritual gift test where you just find out what your gifting is. It's a full-fledged performance profile. It'll tell you your consistency ratio, what you're likely to respond to in challenging times, your readiness to take on the full spectrum of the call. We often think we're ready to take it on because we know we have the ability and we have the anointing. But do you know that sometimes you're not ready for the climate, the conditions, and the environment that come with the call? For instance, us as prophets, we know we're going to experience a lot of rejection, pushback, and resistance. That's the climate. That's the environment of being a prophet. That's the world we have to serve in. Are you emotionally ready to do that? Is your mindset, are your thoughts where they need to be for you to bounce back from those moments and stand firm for God? Well, guess what? The standardized assessments will help you figure that out. And we have 3 layers of them, actually. We offer the ministry assessment, which is for fivefolders, for you to figure out where you are in the general fivefold, okay, if you're a pastor, teacher, or evangelist. And then we have the prophetic assessment, where you can find out if not only if you are a prophet, but what kind of prophet you are, where you're likely to serve or where you should best serve, what of the 7 mountains, okay, would be most effective for your mantle type, if you're a gift or an officer. You can find all of that out inside of this assessment. And not only do we give you the assessment itself, but then we pair you with a prophetic advisor to help you understand the results and walk them out and implement them in your life. That's what's great about this tool. I know some people out there think, what, an assessment? I have the anointing. I have a spiritual gift. I don't need an assessment to tell me what it is. But wouldn't it be great to know that you're meeting a particular standard and that there's an objective view on what you're doing? Now you don't have to wait. Pastor, see me, see that I'm anointed, see that I'm called. Didn't you hear me prophesy? Now you can go to the website yourself and find out of yourself, out of your own thoughts, out of the way you think, whether you are or not fit for this office. That's what's great about it, because sometimes we need objectivity. And what assessments bring is that exact objectivity. We don't tamper with the results. We don't tamper with the questions. We literally just let you answer them from your own experience. And it gives you an x-ray on you and what you're likely to do in the environment of those offices and those ministry functions. Wouldn't you like to know what type of prophet you are, what sphere you're called to, what people group would best receive you, how God wants to use your mantle? It's great to know that you have one, right? But when you want to know how he's going to do it, what is already buried in your DNA? So what's your ministry IQ? That's what the standardized ministry assessments answers. So why don't you check us out by visiting www.drpaulaaprice.com. That's right, www.drpaulaaprice.com. Click on the link that says take an assessment, and it will give you more information about which assessment is best for you, why you should do it, and what are the benefits of just knowing. And sometimes you get peace of just knowing that that's who you are. So why don't you come and check us out? Find out your ministry identity. Get your IQ today by visiting www.drpaulaaprice.com.
Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast with Dr. Paula Price. To learn more about Dr. Price, her events, products, assessments, the Success Center advisements, Taking It On with Paula Price television show, and booking and spiritual advocacy, visit www.drpaulaaprice.com today. For more information about Price University, visit www.priceuniversity.org. You can also subscribe to Dr. Price's channel on YouTube called God's Royal Network. That's right, God's Royal Network. You can stay connected to a host and a variety of television shows that are scripturally organic and culturally unmodified. Subscribe there and also like Dr. Price's page right here on Facebook.